South Jersey. This is Game Night with Josh Hennig. Let's go! On 97.3 ESPN and the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app. Let's go! Now live from inside the Ocean Casino Resort Studio, here's Josh Hennig.
What I loved about Zach Bond, obviously he started out the year, and we heard about him throughout the regular season, how great he was, but this dude even elevated above that for the playoffs. Like when things mattered in the playoffs and the Super Bowl, the dude continued to step up over and over again. So that's why football's awesome, man. Like you do this, you get rewarded. Like that, hey, if you go above and beyond of what we may have thought, like you're going to go be paid one of the highest paid linebackers in the NFL.
The Philadelphia Eagles continue to stay in the news cycle as Zach Bond is now another Eagle in the news, and this time it's because he is back. Josh Hennig, I am back here on 97.3 ESPN FM, the 97.3 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Sea Isle, and of course, we are streaming live on my YouTube channel at Josh Hennig. Busy show coming up this hour. We will be joined by Dave Weinberg coming up in less than 15 minutes. Now I'll ask his thoughts on some of the latest Eagles. Maybe we'll get to a little Phillies with him. Plus, ScoopB Robinson, NBA insider. He will be joining us coming up at 6:40. He was the one who had the first report about the Bob Myers Sixers potential future connection. And we'll get his thoughts on the state of the Sixers. As, listen, the Sixers, I have been complaining, are a dumpster fire. And if Philadelphia is going to do anything with this team, it's got to start now. I need to see progress this offseason. So we'll get that from him as well. As always, you guys can join the conversation. Zach Bond re-signs with the Eagles. Of course, Saquon, his contract yesterday, I did not get to comment on that. I'll give you a couple quick thoughts on that as well here on 97.3 ESPN. 609-403-0973 is the text board, and your DMs into the 97.3 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Sea Isle. And that's kind of where I wanted to start, is the Saquon. Not because I'm hung up on yesterday, but because you don't get to re-sign Zach Bond if it's not for Saquon yesterday. See, here's how the breakdown works. For those who don't know, when the Eagles cut Darius Slay and they cut James Bradbury and then they re-signed Saquon to that extension, that altogether is actually saving Philadelphia about $10 million on the salary cap next year. So if you're giving Zach Bond, they're saying it's $34 million guaranteed, which breaks out to about $11.33 million. So you basically cleared out the salary cap room for Zach Bond to give him that money this year. And so it really goes to show you about what the Eagles have talked about all year. It's the concept of we over me. It's the idea that it's the collective. It's not about the individual. It's the idea that the whole organization is bought in. And as Jonathan Jones explains, CBS Sports NFL insider, he explained earlier today on CBS Sports HQ that ultimately Zach Bond re-signing with the Eagles really does show you that for once, for an athlete, it really is not all about the money.
Vic Fangio believed in him at that position, and it's paid huge dividends for Zach Bond, the all-pro linebacker. So a very good deal for Bond. Again, if this were all about money, he could have waited a week. He probably would have gotten more money elsewhere. But clearly it's not just about money for him. It's about being a world champion, and he was and is that now and wants to continue to be that.
Very, very fascinating perspective there from NFL insider Jonathan Jones from CBS Sports saying, look, he could have gotten more money, right? You know, some of the projections out there were 13 to 15 million a year. Well, he's basically at 11 and a half if you do the math about based on the guaranteed money. Don't get hung up on the big number total because of the fact that, and I'm not saying this to be mean, but I just want to remind folks, when you see the difference between the guaranteed money and the grand total money, it's very important to keep in mind the differences, because the 51 million is what the agent wants you to see. The other number, the guaranteed money, is the real money involved. That's the money that has to do with the Eagles and how much they actually have to pay him. And that is a huge, huge difference in all of this. It's the idea that, and listen, I'm not going to sit here and act like I have all the answers here, right? I'm not going to sit here and act like I know exactly what is going on. But I know for a fact that these teams, when they tell you this amount of money is guaranteed, right? It's 34 million guaranteed. That's the number you go off of. The incentives and the escalators, reports are that it's 1.5 million per year in incentives and escalators. And if you do the math, that basically means that Zach Bond is incentivized to make an extra almost $5 million over the next 3 years. And then the rest of the unguaranteed money looks like it's probably going to be dummy money at the end of the contract. But this is what the Eagles do. This is what Howie Roseman does. They find ways to make it work within the salary cap. Former NFL wide receiver TJ Houshmandzadeh was a guest on FS1, and he said this about the Philadelphia Eagles.
Jeffrey Lurie, Howie Roseman, stand up, pat yourself on the back, because you look at the Eagles team. Everybody on their team is getting paid. Right. But what these other teams say? The salary cap, man, we can't do it. No, you can do it if you want to do it. The Eagles are the best organization in football. I want to go there as a free agent. I want to be drafted there. They are doing a hell of a job.
And TJ Houshmandzadeh should know what it's like to play for a bad organization because he played for the Bengals. A cheap owner, an owner who players have described the organizational food as prison food, an organization that has been very apprehensive about spending money on their players because they just don't want to spend money. They feel like there's a surplus to be made from being an NFL team, and they're penny pinchers over there in Cincinnati at times. So Philadelphia, great job, back-to-back days, bringing back Bond today, giving Barkley a contract extension, and giving it to him in a way that is going to save Philadelphia money. It really is a win-win for everyone, and we'll get into it more next with Dave Weinberg, former longtime Eagles beat writer, now 97.3 ESPN.com sports columnist, joins me next here on 97.3 ESPN FM and the 97.3 ESPN mobile app. It's free, thanks to First Bank of Sea Isle City.
It's Flyers Jets tomorrow night on Rock 104.1 and the Rock 104.1 mobile app. Listen as Tim Saunders and Todd Fedor bring you all the exciting play-by-play action.
Now Beachcock on the back end. He scores! Bad Bay Beachcock!
It's Flyers Jets tomorrow night. Coverage begins at 7 p.m. It's Philadelphia Flyers hockey on South Jersey's classic rock station.
What a save by Harrison again!
Rock 104.1 and the Rock 104.1 mobile app.
You don't need a President's or Valentine's sale. Get to Matt Black Kia and save every day with over 1,100 new Kias in stock or en route. All with 0 down, 0 payments until May, even low 1.9% 0% financing for 60 months on 25 Kia Sorento and Sportage SUV. So bring any trade, even if you're buried in a loan or lease. Matt Blatt Kia wants to get you released and into your new Matt Blatt Kia. Like the all-new 25K4. Just $129 per month lease with 0 security deposit and only $36.95 due. Matt Blatt Kia, your PA and New Jersey Kia superstores in Abington, Egg Harbor Township, and Toms River, or right to your front door.
It's gotta be a Matt Blatt Kia.
With approved credit, $13.89 per thousand finance. Not all will qualify. Credit may affect down payment. Offers can't be combined. Go to mattblattkia.nj.com for complete details or 888-505-6670. Price includes all costs to be paid by consumer except for licensing, registration, and taxes through KMF. Rebates and incentives to deal expires 3/4/25. Matt Blatt Kia, 6211 Black Horse Pike, Egg Harbor Township, and on Route 37 in Toms River.
When you're hiring, have you ever felt like you're missing out on meeting truly great candidates for your roles? It seems impossible to find them, but they have to be out there somewhere, right? Well, they're not hard to find when you know where to go, and that place is ZipRecruiter. And right now, you can try ZipRecruiter for free at ZipRecruiter.com/radio. ZipRecruiter helps 10 million people with their job search every day. And because these people are actively looking for jobs just like yours, it's easy to find the right person right away. In fact, 4 out of 5 employers who post on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. But if you're not using ZipRecruiter, you're missing out. So see what it's like when the impossible is easy. When you go to ZipRecruiter.com/radio right now to try ZipRecruiter for free. Once again, that's ZipRecruiter.com/radio. ZipRecruiter.com/radio. Never miss out on great candidates with ZipRecruiter.
When something happens to your kitchen, you might say,
"This is ludicrous."
but that won't fix your home. That will only get you the rapper, Ludacris.
Having trouble? Don't panic. Don't be alarmed. You need to file a claim? Holla at State Farm. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
That's right. You can file a claim on the app or call us.
Thanks, Mr. Chris.
No matter how ludicrous the situation, like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
State Farm, Bloomington, Illinois.
Hey, Joy. Oh, you are glowing.
Oh, hey. More like Mira joyed that Miralax helped me go. I was so backed up. Tried mega coffees, prune juice, everything. Then Miralax. And hello, gentle relief without the harsh side effects.
Ooh, how does it work?
It works naturally with the water in your body for constipation relief. Find Miralax today at Walmart.
Use as directed for occasional constipation.
This is the Town Square, New Jersey Info and Weather Network.
Progressive Insurance presents the Sports Flash on 97.3 ESPN. A day after the Eagles made Saquon Barkley the richest running back in the history of the league with a 2-year, $41.2 million extension, the Eagles re-signed All-Pro linebacker Zach Vaughn to a 3-year, $51 million extension, including $34 million guaranteed. He had 151 tackles, 3.5 sacks, and 11 tackles for a loss last season, including 33 tackles in the playoffs with a pair of interceptions, including one in the Super Bowl. NBA, the Sixers back in action Thursday facing the Celtics. Philadelphia losing to Minnesota Tuesday night, 126-112. They've dropped 11 of their last 12 games. Paul George, a game-time decision Thursday with the groin injury. Quentin Grimes led Philadelphia Tuesday night with 30 points. Flyers back on the ice Thursday, home to face the Winnipeg Jets. Philadelphia coming off a loss Tuesday, where they fell to the Calgary Flames 6-3. Progressive Insurance, bundle auto and home, renters or condo, and save with Progressive. I'm Tony Desiri, and that's your Sports Flash on 97.3 ESPN.
It happens more than you think. A customer wants, needs the goods and services your business offers. No matter how hard they try, they can't find you, but they find your competitor right there at the top of the results page.
And even if they do find your website, when they click, it's like a ghost town.
Hello?
Outdated, not compelling, and perhaps worse, it has information that's not accurate.
Y2K? But how do you fix that? At Town Square Interactive, we have the tools to help you maximize your online presence. Just go to mylocalcustomers.com and start by getting a free local customer analysis.
This online tool will show you just how many customers in your area you could be reaching. To get in front of those customers, we will build a premium website for your business.
One that shows up well in web searches and converts website clicks into phone calls, appointments, and foot traffic.
It's simple, it's fast, and it's affordable. Go to mylocalcustomers.com and get started by getting your free local customer analysis today.
From the Town Square, New Jersey Info and Weather Network, I'm Chief Meteorologist Dan Zarrow. Heavy rain and gusty winds are the biggest concerns from widespread thunderstorms over the next few hours. Looks like the bulk of the rain will exit South Jersey by around 9 or 10 p.m., although lingering showers and fog will remain possible through daybreak tomorrow morning. Overnight low 48. Now, tomorrow's going to be a blustery day. We go from 50s in the morning into the 40s by the afternoon. Sunny, breezy, and seasonable Friday, high 49. Get weather 24/7 wherever you are. Download our free mobile app today.
The 2025 Hercules Tires MAC Basketball Championships are returning to Atlantic City's iconic Jim Whalen Boardwalk Hall for the 6th consecutive year, March 11th through the 15th, featuring 22 men's and women's teams. The tournament is fun for the family, featuring a band jam, Spirit Squad showcase, Kids Day, and mascot game. Don't miss the chance to be a part of the action to see who will cut down the nets and earn a spot in the big dance. Visit maxsports.com/basketball for more information.
This is Game Night with Josh Hennig on 97.3 ESPN and the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app.
The number one most important free agent for the Eagles to bring back, because unlike the other positions, they don't really have another guy waiting in the wings to take his spot. Even Nakobe Dean is coming off of a very serious injury. Actually gets me excited to see what he can do in year 2 with Vic Fangio on this Eagles defense.
That was Ross Tucker's instant reaction on the Ross Tucker podcast about Zach Bond. He is back with the Eagles. Arguably the most important of the Eagles free agents is back. And to get more into it now with us is Dave Weinberg here on 97.3 ESPN. Of course, Extra Point columns at 973ESPN.com and longtime Eagles beat writer. Dave, welcome back in. How you doing today?
Doing well, Josh. In the midst of family bingo night at West Cape May Elementary.
Family
nip and tuck.
bingo night.
Yep. 2 grandsons in the
you're-
school, and that's the way it goes.
I was going to say at least you're indoors because
Oh, yeah,
the rain,
yeah.
I got to tell you, here in the studio, there have been points today where literally the rain has been so loud it's distracting me.
Yeah, I can hear it in the gym here. It's just like pounding. Yeah, it's amazing.
It's like you don't need to get your car washed, Dave. The rain's doing it for you, basically.
Very good.
So first, let's start with the Zach Bond news that dropped today, Dave, because
Sure.
This is the first time since 2018 the Eagles have re-signed a linebacker to a significant deal. Obviously, last time was Nigel Bradham, but now Bond is, in terms of value, the highest paid linebacker in Eagles franchise history. What are your thoughts on the Eagles finding a way to get this done?
Great move by the Eagles. I mean, Zach was such an integral part of their defensive success. I mean, finalist for NFL Defensive Player of the Year. Just had a fantastic year. The only thing that makes me not pause but wonder is he wouldn't have gotten this kind of money anywhere else. I don't think, right? I mean, he's such a perfect fit for Vic Fangio's defense, and really flourished in that. I'm just kind of wondering, I guess they just wanted to make sure that he came back. I mean, it sounded like he wanted to come back, so they just found a way to make it work. But I'm a little surprised because that he was able to get the contract that he got. But kudos to Howie for offering him it and for him accepting it.
Well, I know that there were some people who were saying, like Adam Schefter, that that Bond was going to be in high demand in free agency.
Okay.
So but I don't know what high demand means. Does high demand mean more than he got from the Eagles? Does high demand just mean that he has 8 people knocking on his door? You know what I mean? It's not always an apples to apples thing, because
Right.
if you break it down, you know how it is, Dave. It's the guaranteed money you got to look at, and the guaranteed money breaks out to about $11.3 million a year. So it's
Right.
if a team offered him $12 million a year, right? Would that really have swayed him? To me, where I give him the Eagles credit, Dave, is they didn't let him out of the building. They didn't even let him get the free agency. They were just like, let's do this right here, right now.
Mm-hmm.
And it just goes to show you that, the whole concept of the entire year, the whole we instead of me, you are not greater than the greatness of others, all of the Sirianni-isms right throughout the year, that some of these players are legitimately, still bought into that idea.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, they were clear. There were players here who wanted to be back and made it pretty evident that they would that they were willing to negotiate and do whatever it took to get here. I mean, some of them probably weren't going to get a whole lot of offers elsewhere, but I mean, again, all it takes is one other team, right,
Right.
to establish a market, and that's probably what happened with Zach, I guess. Although, as you said, maybe there were other teams involved. But yeah, it's great for the culture. It's great for the franchise that they have guys who um, love it here. You know, they love the team, they love the city, they love the fans, they love the locker room, and that's a formula for a winning organization.
It's interesting you mentioned at the end there about the winning organization because there's a lot of former players who've been jumping on the media in the last 24 hours who are
Mhm.
pointing to the Barkley and they're pointing to the Bond deal today and saying this is what good organizations do. Like this is you take care of guys, you make sure that you build the team, you know. And it's funny because I'm not that it's really funny, but I personally laugh a little bit because it's guys like TJ Hushmanzada and Dan Orlovsky who played for poor, pitiful organizations in their career. So it's like
Right.
you almost hear it's like jealousy in their voice. They're like, yeah, I wish I played for an organization that cared about me when they look at what's going on with the Eagles.
Yeah, I mean, and the bottom line, it is a business, though. I mean, like you know, you saw Darius Slay get let go, or is going to get let go, although they may bring him back. I guess I don't know, but I mean, there are tough decisions they have to make too. I mean, they've clearly pinpointed guys that they want to either reward with extensions or make sure that they bring them back before they test the free agent waters. But then there's other guys who you know we'll let you test and see what happens. Maybe Josh Sweat probably fits in that category. I don't know. But yeah, the winning organizations are the ones that have a lot of success. They do a great job of going into an off season way before the off season. They knew what they wanted to do, and have been doing a great job of formulating. It's kind of funny. I just read something today where you know how he never placed any emphasis on running back or linebacker. Then all of a sudden he gets hit in the head with a beer can, and now he's got all this money to throw.
Well, Howie is the one who said at the scouting combine in Indianapolis last week about how he said, he had to learn from his mistakes. He's had to evolve. You know, he's had to grow as an executive, and he said, he made the comment himself. He's like, look, we got to break free of these stereotypes and do what's best for the team, and not just what we've done the last 10 years.
Right, right. I mean, the history suggests they don't place a whole lot of emphasis on linebackers in particular, and the fact that they haven't drafted one in the first round since Jerry Robinson, I guess. So, yeah,
Yes.
but things evolve, and they know that, especially I mean, this year, if anything, proved that the linebackers are a vital, important part of their defense, and so kudos to them for recognizing it and doing something about it.
Talk with Dave Weinberg, of course, Extra Point Columns over at 97.3 ESPN.com. I made the comment before you came on, Dave, about, to me, the Saquon Barkley deal was common sense. Because, you actually are saving money on the salary cap by giving the guy money up front. So it's like, if that's all it takes, right? It's like, hey, Howie goes to Jeffrey Lurie, can you give me an extra, $10 million some dollars to throw at Saquon Barkley, take it off the salary cap up front? It's like, I think Jeffrey Lurie's going to say no. Like, Jeffrey Lurie he's about taking care of these guys. So to me, the Saquon Barkley extension was not too surprising because to me that this is what you do. You take care of guys who play well.
Especially guys who rush for 2,000 yards, right?
Right.
There's
There's only nine of them, Dave. There's only 9 of them.
Right, right. It's clear that they that was definitely the right move, and like you said, it was common sense. The fact that he's an elite player in this league, behind an elite offensive line, it should be noted as well. I mean, who knows if he has this success elsewhere? But yeah, it's the perfect fit of player, running back, offensive line, coaches. Yeah, it's going to be interesting how it goes forward this this next year with a new offensive coordinator. But I assume they're going to have the same approach, or at least a similar one.
You mentioned the offensive line. Would you bring back Becton?
I'm not breaking the bank for him. He's a great story and had a very good year, but don't know that he's like one of those must-haves. I think they have a lot of depth up front on the offensive line, and there's probably somebody that they can plug in there Steen maybe, I guess, or somebody else might, excuse me, might be able to step in there, or they're most likely draft one or two guys, this coming April. So, I if he wants to come back and if he can make it, if it makes sense financially, then yes. But I'm not overextending myself to retain him though.
Yeah, I mean, I'm conflicted on Becton because on one hand, I do think that I want to keep that 5 intact. I don't like the whole, changing bodies every year. But at the same time, how can you not trust Jeff Stoutland? Like the guy has done an amazing job.
Right.
It's like until Stoutland is no longer coaching these guys, then I'm just kind of let it ride. And I'll give the Eagles
Right.
credit. They've done a good job at drafting offensive linemen. They could always find a random guy in the second round that we're not thinking of, and that guy could play again next year.
Yeah, yeah. Statlin's a big key. You're right. The fact that he's able to get whoever they get is able to mold him and form him into at least a quality offensive lineman. I mean, in the case of Jordan Mailata, that was an amazing developmental project, coming from never playing football in his life to, I mean, not even know how to put on a helmet, and all of a sudden he's an all pro or a Pro Bowl level player. And Statlin's done that with a lot of other guys. I mean, they may not have attained the same level of success as Mailata and Lane Johnson, but they're solid, reliable offensive linemen, and that's a rare quality.
We lost Dave Weinberg there for a minute. I guess the weather affected his connection. We'll try to get him back here on 97.3 ESPN. I'm not sure what happened there. Just Dave was mid-sentence and then gone. Maybe that weather just happened to matriculate down south. For those who don't know, Dave lives in the Cape May area, so if he's doing anything with his family, it's probably down in that area. So I do wonder if maybe the weather impacted that. So Josh Hennig here in the Ocean Casino Resort Studios here on 97.3 ESPN. Let's get to a couple of your texts until we get Dave back at 609-403. Oh, there he is, 0973. Yeah, Dave, we lost you there. I said when we lost you, I think the weather might have knocked you out there. So
I wouldn't doubt it. That or bingo. I don't know.
Or both, combination,
Yep. But as I was saying, Statlin's
yeah.
a big key here, and the fact that he's been able to, turn even, I mean, almost anyone into if you have at least a solid, serviceable, reliable offensive line, then you're doing your job, and the Eagles are loaded with those kind of guys.
Dave, before I let you go, I did want to get some baseball with you because Ken Rosenthal, the MLB insider, now works for Fox Sports and The Athletic. He had a 10-minute one-on-one conversation with Bryce Harper that he wrote about. And I thought the one comment that came out of it, I wanted to ask you about, because you and I have had a lot of conversations about the construction of the Phillies team and their roster and their lineup. And I thought that this I'll call it, I don't know if I'll call it a revelation, because I don't want to get hyper, crazy about it. But I did think it's an interesting comment that Rosenthal asked Bryce Harper, would he ever be willing to go back to the outfield and stop playing first base? And this is what Rosenthal had to say. This was earlier today on MLB Network.
Yes, he is willing to go back to the outfield, perfectly willing. He has no preference. And his thought is, if the Phillies can get a first baseman who is a difference-making kind of player, then he would definitely do it and gladly do it.
Now, the rumor, Dave, is that, if the Phillies could have signed like a Pete Alonso, he would have moved positions. So, what is your take on, because the impression we all were under was Harper wants to be at first. He likes being at first base. He's enjoyed it. There's that whole story where he said he wanted to win a Gold Glove as a first baseman. And now all of a sudden it's, well, if I got to go to the outfield because we could bring in a difference maker at first base, I'll do it. It feels, I don't want to say it's a 180, but it definitely feels like some sort of turnabout.
It's great for Bryce. I mean, the fact that he's the leader on that team and a key piece, if not the key piece to their success. The fact that he's willing to do that speaks a lot to his character and his leadership. And I mean, first base seems to suit him very well. probably preserves the wheels a little better, avoiding injury. But yeah, I mean, I don't want to say he was a great outfielder, but he was a pretty good outfielder. He made himself into one. So, yeah, if that's what it takes to help the team and he's willing to do that, then more credit to him.
I think it's also interesting that, like, he says if it's a difference maker at first base. And you know how all these Philly fans are out there saying, what about Rhys Hoskins, And it's
True.
like people are
Yeah.
so fast to forget that Rhys Hoskins had the most errors at first base of any first
Yeah.
baseman in 2022. Like, I
Right.
get that he's a right-handed bat, but, like, people forget that Rhys Hoskins, I mean, he might have been the worst first baseman for the Phillies in, like, the last 30 years defensively.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, you could be right there. Yeah, people do have they have short memories. I mean, Reese was a fan favorite, no question about it, and he endeared himself to them. And when you have a popular player like that, you tend to overlook the flaws a little bit, and that's probably what the case was with Reese.
I just think back through all the years of Phillies baseball, right? And it's like, I mean, even when you had guys like Rico Bronya and Travis Lee playing first base, like those guys
Yeah.
still at least defensive first basemen, like they
Right.
couldn't hit, but they could play defense,
Well, I go back to Willie Montanez and Darren Johnson, so I go a little farther back than you, but I get your point.
Well, I'm sticking with a 30-year window because, like, to me,
Okay, yeah.
it's like,
I'm a little older than that, yeah.
Well, I'm also with it because, like, the '93 team had both Kruk and Ricky Jordan at first base, and they
Right.
were both, above average defensive players.
Uh-huh.
I feel like the last time the Phillies had a bad first baseman had to be before Kruk got here, basically.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, you're right there. Yep.
I mean, some of those '80s teams, my pop-up used to just scream at the TV all the time.
Mm-hmm.
It's like the mid to late '80s were not exactly a great time for Phillies baseball.
You think that was bad? Try growing up in the '60s. They were awful, awful.
Well, that's
Except
an
for
interesting
'64.
one. Let me ask you before I let you go. Which was a worse time if you're a Phillies sports fan, Dave? Was it the Phillies in the '60s or the Eagles in the '70s?
Oh man, that's hard. Boy, it's kind of tough because back then Philly was a baseball town, I think. So fans were probably a little more disappointed in what the Phillies were doing. But the Eagles were god awful back then. I mean, Pete Lisk as your quarterback, and Norm Bulash, and I mean, it was just it was they were horrible. And if you're going to compare like the two franchises, probably the Eagles in the '70s were worse, but I think the fans might have been more disappointed in the Phillies.
Gotcha. All right. Interesting dichotomy there.
Yeah.
The one team is worse, but the other team is it hurts your soul a little more. So
Right. Yep.
it's like me now with the Sixers. Like I think the Sixers can just burn and be done. And like I was
You're
always
not
telling
alone.
I was telling somebody last night. I was like, if it's the Phillies or the Flyers, you can get my interest. If it's the Sixers, I could care less. Like, I
Right.
mean, it's like I'm watching the game on Saturday night because I was out, and I was just like, how is Quentin Grimes scoring all these points? Like, why? Where's the defense in the NBA? Like, why are we winning this game?
Yeah. Yep.
It's so bad. Meanwhile, last night I'm watching the Flyers game, and I'm like, where's the defense? It's just completely opposite emotional connections for me right now. Dave
Gotcha.
Weinberg at Dave Weinberg 19 on the Twitter X platform, Extra Point columns at 973ESPN.com. And he joined us live from Bingo down in Cape May County.
Thanks, Josh. I really appreciate it as always. I'll talk to you next week.
Stay dry, Dave, okay?
Thanks. You too.
Josh Hennig here live in the Ocean Casino Resort Studios on 97.3 ESPN. Let's squeeze in a text before we hit the break. Joey D. and Ventnor, I want to get your text before we hit the break. Joey D. chimes in and says, most likely Milton Williams and Josh Sweat are gone in free agency. I think that's pretty much true. I like that the Eagles have brought back Bond. The Eagles have a better track record drafting defensive line than linebacker, but I would like to see the Eagles try and bring back Milton Williams. But the Bond contract will be cheaper than the next Milton Williams or Sweat deals. That's from Joey D. and Ventnor. Joey D is 100% right. The Eagles have a great track record at drafting defensive linemen. And by the way, they still have Moro Ojomo, who I think that they've been kind of they've been kind of cultivating and developing to be maybe the next number 3 D tackle. But I think they still draft one. There's a lot of speculation about the Eagles maybe drafting one of the D linemen, whether it's Pierce Jr. or Holman Lott from Tennessee. There's a lot of speculation that Philadelphia could go D line with the 32nd overall pick to get that 5th year on the rookie contract, and then go a couple other positions down the line. So I do think Joey D's right. There is a strong likelihood that this organization does go into the draft and get some help, because Josh Sweat's going to make a stupid amount of money in free agency, and someone's going to overpay for Milton Williams if he gets to free agency. The only way the Eagles can keep him is if they can convince him to come back on a hometown discount. Otherwise, he ain't coming back either. All right, coming up next, I mentioned the Sixers. The Sixers have felt rudderless for a long time, for months now, but could that be changing? We'll ask NBA insider Brandon ScoopB Robinson next on 97.3 ESPN FM and the 97.3 ESPN mobile app, powered by First Bank of Sea Isle City.
Unsportsmanlike with Evan Cohen, Chris Canty, and Michelle Small.
Y'all are saying biscuits aren't as good as bagels for breakfast sandwich? The biscuit is better.
Cece, no,
The biscuit
you're
is
New York.
better.
What are we doing?
I don't know. Y'all are having the wrong. I don't know who making y'all biscuits. Y'all are all off. Like, if you got a biscuit as the vehicle for the breakfast sandwich, I'll take that 10 times out of 10 over a bagel.
What?
Wake up weekday mornings with Unsportsmanlike with Evan Cohen, Chris Canty, and Michelle Smallman on 97.3 ESPN.
Same game parlays and slot games for days. Double the fun with the Bally Bet app. Let's play. You can bet on football, basketball, baseball, or play blackjack, roulette, even baccarat, y'all. It's double the fun, 2 apps in one. Download it today, but only if you're 21. The Bally Bet Sportsbook and Casino app. You can win real money on your phone. No cap. Must be 21 plus, New Jersey only. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Bally Bet Sportsbook and Casino. Download it.
Okay, I have to tell you. I was just looking on eBay, where I go for all kinds of things I love, and there it was.
That hologram trading card. One of the rarest. The last one I needed for my set. Shiny like the...
Designer handbag of my dreams. One of a kind. eBay had it, and now everyone's asking, ooh, where'd you get your...
Windshield wipers. eBay has all the parts that fit my car. No more annoying. Just beautiful.
Whatever you love, find it on eBay. eBay. Things people love.
By texting 64,000, you agree to receive recurring automated marketing messages from Babbel. Message and data rates may apply. No purchase required. Terms apply. Available at babbel.com/TNC.
At Babbel, we know that language is more. It's more than hello and goodbye, and good evening and good night. It's more than mastering talking about the weather or directions to the closest cafe. At Babbel, our mission is to help you learn language for the long run. Babbel gives you the skills to learn a language for life. Save up to 50% on your Babbel subscription when you text radio to 64,000. That's radio to 64,000.
Protect your home and auto with a bundle from Progressive so you can stop worrying about them and invent new things to worry about, like snakes in your bedroom. Sure, that sounds incredibly irrational, but now that we've mentioned it, you are a little worried. The odds of one snake, let alone snakes plural, are so slim. But you might want to check. Oh, you're not near your bedroom. Guess you just have to sit there and worry about it. So let Progressive protect your home and auto, because you've got enough to worry about. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company affiliates and other insurers, not available in all states.
With Progressive's collision coverage, my family gets up to $1,000 for vet bills if I'm injured in a car accident. And that makes this Chihuahua really feel like part of the family. What's that? I don't sound like a Chihuahua? Oh, I'm sorry. What exactly am I supposed to sound like? I guess all Chihuahuas are high-strung, riding around in expensive designer purses. Actually, I prefer riding in cars. So I appreciate that my family protects me with Progressive's pet collision coverage. Okay, maybe I am a little high-strung. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates. Not available in all states. Coverage for dogs and cats is included with the purchase of collision coverage and is subject to policy terms.
It's Rock Tour, featuring hits from Foreigner, Journey, and Asia, is coming to Ocean Casino Resort in Atlantic City on May 16th. Relive the glory days with legendary artists Lou Graham, Steve Augeri, and John Payne, performing all of their hits, including I Want to Know What Love Is and Don't Stop Believing. Tickets are available at theoceanac.com. Don't miss out on the ultimate 80s rock experience at Ocean Casino Resort. Must be 21 or older. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Now, more Game Night with Josh Hennig on 97.3 ESPN and on the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app, powered by First Bank of Sea Isle City.
Josh Hennig here in the Ocean Casino Resort Studios on 97.3 ESPN. And don't forget, boxing is returning to Atlantic City coming up in just a couple weeks. Yes, for the first time in 2025, on March 22nd, Tropicana Showroom is back with some of the top boxers from all of South Jersey, headlined by undefeated fighter Justin Figueroa, as well as a professional debut of Pleasantville boxer Julio Sanchez III. So don't miss out. Get your tickets now at Ticketmaster.com to ensure that you are in the house for Boxing Insider Promotions' action-packed event on Saturday, March 22nd, inside the Tropicana Showroom. That's where you can see some of the best boxing action. I know, I was talking with the promoter Larry Goldberg earlier, and I mean, this is going to be another great card. Last year they had 3 cards in Atlantic City at the Tropicana Showroom, and it seemed like each card, each event, it got better and better and better each and every week. And I really feel like, we don't always appreciate when great events come to Atlantic City. This is going to be 2 straight weekends of busy times in Atlantic City. Of course, next week you have the MAC men's and women's basketball tournament all week leading up to the championship game on Saturday. Of course, the winner of the MAC tournament gets an automatic bid into the NCAA tournament. And then the weekend after that, of course, you have Boxing Insider Promotions' first event of 2025. So again, get your tickets now at Ticketmaster.com. And as I mentioned, Justin Figueroa is on the card. The thing with Justin is, you got to see him now, folks. Because, and I'm not saying this to be negative to anybody, but when a guy like Justin gets to that next level, right, he is building a resume that cannot be denied very soon. He is already in that double-digit range as an undefeated fighter. And when you get in the undefeated double-digit range, you become a guy who becomes more and more in demand. And eventually, he's going to have a lot of suitors and a lot of interest in people who are going to want him to stop fighting in Atlantic City and go to other places around the country and potentially around the world. So you got to come out and see Justin and all these great young fighters while they are still attainable, basically, to watch exclusively in Atlantic City in a great setup like the Tropicana Showroom in Atlantic City. Again, Saturday, March 22nd, Boxing Insider Promotions, first event of 2025. Tickets on sale now at Ticketmaster.com. We will do a ticket giveaway coming up when the event gets closer, but if you don't want to wait until then, you get your tickets now. Again, Ticketmaster.com, March 22nd, the Tropicana Showroom in Atlantic City. Let's flip it over to the basketball now, because for as much as I have complained about the 76ers, I do have to admit that I do like to find answers and solutions to problems, and that's where the latest report over at ScoopB.com, NBA insider Brandon ScoopB Robinson reports about the potential of Bob Meyer and the 76ers, and the NBA insider ScoopB, of course, ScoopB Radio, ScoopB.com, of course, ScoopB Radio, wherever you get your podcasts, YouTube. I mean, let's be realistic. I mean, you know this, my friend. I mean, people can find content everywhere now, so they just type in ScoopB. They're going to find that content. Right? How you doing today, my friend?
My friend, I am doing good. How are you? Thanks for having me.
I appreciate you jumping on. And, you and I were talking over the weekend about how, this Bob Myers story is fascinating because of not just who he is, but the trajectory of this Sixers season. And that's kind of where I want to start with you. In your mind, do you think we'd even be talking about Bob Myers right now if this Sixers season went differently?
That's a slippery slope, but I will say that Bob Myers' relationship with Josh Harris, the majority owner of the Philadelphia 76ers, is interesting because of Bob Myers' role as a consultant with the Washington Commanders, where he is a consultant. And I'll just tell you, Bob Myers is a guy that knows everybody. He's very well connected, very well sourced, and very well respected. And this is something that came across my desk a couple of weeks ago. I got a phone call by a very respected league fixture. Called me about 2 a.m. and said, Bob Myers and the Sixers do have mutual interest. And so then as that person was talking to me, I said to them, well, what about Brooklyn? Because I had heard some things about Brooklyn, particularly with Sean Marks and just the direction of the team. And they said, yeah, that's interesting. That's cute. But I see Philadelphia growing steam as the season goes along. And I remember tweeting it last Friday, the article that I had written. And maybe 20 minutes later, some of my other colleagues had broken a story about Joel Embiid meeting with Josh Harris about just his future of the season and him ultimately shutting it down. And so, it gained some steam over the weekend. But everyone that I've spoken with since then, even reaching out to my contacts over in Phoenix, they don't have the same interest in Bob Myers as the 76ers do. And he has an easy key to open the door because of his relationship with Josh Harris.
Bob Harris, we got to remind people, has a very interesting background because it's not like the man worked in the NBA his entire life in terms of a front office. He did work as an agent, for a time before he became the Warriors GM. So he does bring a very interesting perspective that I'm just going back in my own memory bank. I don't think Philadelphia has had that kind of person involved in the organization in many years.
No, and that's kind of the way the direction of today's general manager in the NBA is going. A lot of guys who are once GMs, or rather who are now GMs, once agents, they're assuming these roles. And that's, I've broken this down. That's kind of where you saw Nico Harris with the Dallas Mavericks and his connectivity. Similarly with Rob Pelinka, who was the general manager of the Los Angeles Lakers. Nico comes from a sneaker background, having worked as an executive for years with Nike, and then Rob Pelinka ultimately being Kobe Bryant's agent, also working with James Harden over at Landmark. And ultimately, those guys have a deeper rooted relationship, and that's how the conversation really went to deep talks with the Luka and Anthony Davis trade. To kind of go back to your point just about Bob Myers. He does come from an agent background and is credited as being the architect for that championship Golden State Warriors team, although I still do give credit where credit is due to some of the other fixtures in the Golden State Warriors, namely the coach before Steve Kerr and Mark Jackson, who got those guys early, Draymond, as well as Steph Curry and Klay Thompson, who's now a member of the Mavs. But I think that is the way the direction of the situation is going. You go to parties. I go to certain parties during All-Star Weekend or during Summer League, and it is definitely a consortium of people who have worked in various roles within the National Basketball Association. And Bob Myers definitely has been on both the negotiating side as well as working with star players and as well as working in a front office and dealing with team owners and more.
Talk with NBA insider Brandon ScoopB Robinson at ScoopB on the Twitter X platform as well as on Instagram. Check out ScoopB Radio on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. If Bob Myers were to come to the Sixers, what do you believe is a skill or something that he does well that you observed during his time in Golden State that would be valuable to an organization, whether it be the Sixers or the Nets or whoever? Like, what is something that Bob Myers brings to the table?
Connectivity and relatability to today's player. You're around a lot of NBA players, and they sniff you out within the first 5 seconds. Even top prospects that are going to the draft, they sniff you out. You're treated like kings or queens in your respective sport. And you know who the kingmakers and who has say and who does what they're told. I think winning championships, particularly on such a high-profile team like the Golden State Warriors, has its perks. To me, in today's NBA, the Golden State Warriors still are the gold standard for winning in the same way that the Chicago Bulls were in the 90s with Michael, Scottie, Dennis Rodman, and whatever iteration of teams that you looked at during those 6 championships under head coach Phil Jackson. I think Bob Myers is revered in a way that's on the right side of history, that when you looked at the Last Dance with the Bulls, their GM wasn't looked at the same way. And I do think that Bob Myers had the advantage of not sinking down with the ship or being the bad guy when it was perceived that the ship was sinking, when ultimately Klay Thompson left, and now they have Jimmy Butler and Steph Curry, and there's new life alongside Draymond Green. But I think connectivity is the biggest portion there for Bob Myers. And I also think that having television experience on ESPN currently, sitting next to the Stephen A's, the Malika Andrews, the Kendrick Perkins, and Shams Charania, and all those guys and lady, I think has its perks there. So it keeps you in constant repetition of focus. Kind of similarly, in my druthers, that Bill Belichick had at ESPN before ultimately taking the job at North Carolina as their new head football coach there.
My mind was going to, I remember the years that Steve Kerr was calling games for TNT.
Mm-hmm.
And, you could argue that, being involved in the sport, but getting a fresh set of eyes on it can help anybody. Getting a fresh perspective on anything can help.
I've spoken to Steve Kerr over the years about that. And one of the things that Coach Kerr shared with me was not just the decision-making processes that I believe at the time he was an executive with the Phoenix Suns and then transitioned into television at TNT or vice versa. But one of the things that I found interesting in talking with Steve Kerr about that was the things that you don't think have anything to do with basketball that do. So not only was he in charge of making decisions about personnel, he also was communicating with vendors about food and drinks. You don't think about that with Steve Kerr. You think about hitting three-point shots as a member of the championship Bulls, the championship San Antonio Spurs, but he's also charged with communicating with the purchasing order folks, whoever that may be, whether the right amount of popcorn is in the concession stands, whether the right jerseys that players or the merchandising that are being sold. So you're looking at that. It's more to it than just the decision-making process of who goes where and playing golf with your counterparts on other respective teams to get the best possible deal. Bob Myers, to me, is a schmoozer, but he's effective in that way. I also think that one of the things that was interesting about Bob Myers over the years before he ultimately decided to go into television at ESPN, it is of my understanding that his wife is from Southern California. And so when he ultimately made the decision to do TV, ESPN studios are right in the TLA, downtown LA. And so he's able to kind of happy wife, happy life, if you will. And so I think, those are the decisions you're making, not just about career, but about your family when deciding that's what you want to do in Los Angeles. As it relates to the Los Angeles Lakers, they have a job filled in with Rob Pelinka, who made a trade to get Luka Doncic, a very good trade. So I know that job is not available, but I know that in Philadelphia, it's not currently available. But based upon the record, it'll be interesting to see what happens with both Daryl Morey and Elton Brand, and whether he'll outright take the GM or the president of basketball operations role, or he'll serve in a similar consulting capacity that he was doing with the Washington Commanders.
By the way, before I let that totally slip away, it was at ScoopB back in August of last year was the first person I saw talk about the possibility of Luka Doncic being traded to the Lakers. So if you're not following Brandon Scoopy Robinson on social media, you guys are missing out. I'm just putting it out there. But back to your other point about the Sixers, before I let you go, this has been a rough year for Philadelphia. There's a lot of expectations coming into the year. And, I know that, your primary function is as a content creator and NBA insider and everything, but I know you're also at heart a diehard basketball fan. You love the game. So for you, what has been the most disappointing aspect of this Sixers season for someone like yourself?
I think the expectations that the Sixers were going to dominate the Eastern Conference, and it gave you an alternative to the Boston Celtics and an alternative to the New York Knicks. And what what we thought the Sixers could be or ultimately what the Cleveland Cavaliers have become consistently all season, top to bottom. Kenny Atkinson and his team are playing inspiring basketball. And I think in a world where we constantly pay attention to big markets, it is encouraging to see a Cleveland team do their thing in the Eastern Conference, and comparatively in the West to see Oklahoma be consistent in the same vein. For Philadelphia, I think health from the beginning. I mean, whether we're talking about Paul George being injured in the preseason, whether we're talking about Joel Embiid being hurt, and the whole conversation about back-to-backs, and then the unfortunate altercation with Joel and another member of the press, and then now seeing Tyrese Maxey being out in back-to-back games. Like, I think the encouraging part about it is that you are seeing other guys step up, whether that be one in Andre Drummond, whether that be Kelly Oubre, who's been playing well. I think it even the 44 points the other night against the Golden State Warriors in a win. I'm so mad that he didn't hit those 6 free throws. I was pissed. As my uncle would say, I was pissed off beyond all levels of pissivity. I was mad because I wanted that 50 burger. But it's just injuries and just silly stuff that has been frustrating, this season for the 76ers. And, now we're talking potential lottery. You're looking at the names that are out there, whether that's, Dylan Harper and Ace Bailey of Rutgers University, who I've watched quite a bit and developed a rapport with this season, or, if that's, ultimately the young man from Duke that is also doing his thing. I think there's a lot of talent out there, but we should be talking about this with the 76ers. We should be talking, playoff run, championship run, not play in.
Yeah, absolutely. He is NBA insider Brandon ScoopB Robinson. Just type in ScoopB on all the social media platforms, Twitter, X, Instagram. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Get the alerts from all the podcasting platforms. And, of course, he joined us here on 97.3 ESPN. My friend, I appreciate you jumping on and giving us some of your insights.
Thank you, as always, and thank you for the opportunity to be myself.
Anytime, my friend. Take care of yourself, all right?
All right, you too.
Josh Hennig live in the Ocean Casino Resort Studios here on 97.3 ESPN FM and the 97.3 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Seattle. And one of my biggest takeaways from what he said about the Bob Myers stuff is he said that, Bob Myers is a guy who has cultivated this relationship with players and other executives. And it's interesting because it's not that Daryl Morey doesn't have those relationships, but it's that Bob Myers might be able to just give you something different. And sometimes you need a new set of eyes. Sometimes you need a different person to take a look at an infrastructure in order to maximize what your future is going to be. And listen, I don't know what the Sixers' future holds, but the fact that Bob Myers is even being discussed just goes to put a cherry on top of how much of a disaster the Sixers season has been. I'm Josh Hennig. Have a great night, everybody.
Rise and shine, Valentine. All month long, you be the commander-in-chief. The savings are presidential.
And really quick here, on my YouTube channel, at Josh Hennig, where I do a little post-show, just a really quick follow-up on what I was just saying about the Bob Myers stuff with Brandon ScoopB Robinson. We thank him for joining the show, as well as Dave Weinberg, of course, from 97.3 ESPN.com. And, one of the points that is brought up about Bob Myers is the fact that, and I'm literally going to pull up, and I'm going to reference, because Brandon Robinson mentioned this in a little bit during our conversation, but I want to share with you guys what he wrote on his website, because there is something to be said about this part of the conversation. And this is from ScoopB.com. He says, what sets Myers apart from many of his contemporaries is his ability to blend business savvy with a deep understanding of player dynamics. As Golden State's general manager, he helped orchestrate the acquisition of Kevin Durant and Brandon Wiggins, tried to keep players like Jordan Poole, and maintain strong relationships with stars like Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, and Draymond Green. His ability to manage egos, foster continuity, and make difficult yet forward-thinking decisions help cement the Warriors as a model franchise. And I think that is where bringing Myers into Philadelphia has the greatest appeal for Sixer fans, is that concept right there. The idea that Bob Myers created a very special and unique environment in Golden State that focused on winning. It focused on being an organization basically being the best version of itself. And I think what gets overlooked so many times in sports comes back to the conversation we've been having about the Eagles. The idea that the Eagles are a top-notch franchise. Again, I go back to a man who played for a bad franchise, TJ Hushmanzada, who played for years for the Cincinnati Bengals. This was from FS1's Speak for Yourself.
Philadelphia Eagles, best organization in football. Everybody on their team that earns a big contract, you are rewarded. Like, man, it's kudos to the Eagles. Like, the draft is coming up soon. I'm praying if I'm in the draft that I get drafted to the Philadelphia Eagles, the way they treat their guys.
Another man who played for a trash organization, Dan Orlovsky, who played for that 0-16 Detroit Lions team, said this earlier today on Sportsmanlike, the morning show nationally heard here on 97.3 ESPN.
They were always, or one of the teams that was always paying guys a year early. Like so often teams wait till the person's contract up or a player's contract is up and it's till like the very end of it. And I remember Fletcher Cox and Lane Johnson where they just choose to pay, hey, we drafted you, you're in your second year, we're just going to extend you because you're a good player and whatnot. So it's awesome to see. It's one of the reasons why it seems like those people love playing there is how he does take care of them.
People love playing there. They're a first-class organization. This is the opposite perspective of the 76ers. And it doesn't matter if you're a fan of Daryl Morey or not. It doesn't matter if you like what the Sixers have or have not done in recent years. It doesn't matter if you're a fan of the process or not. The reality is there's a way of doing business in the sports world. And that is a reflection of how you do business in the real world. The idea that you want to do right by people. You want to communicate well. Again, I love the part when he writes in the article about how maintaining strong relationships with the players, managing egos, fostering continuity, making difficult yet forward-thinking decisions. It's the idea that Bob Myers is about building. He's not just about basketball. And I think because his background was as an agent before he became an executive, and because he has spent the last year, basically giving some of his, advice and his expertise in how to build an organization to Josh Harris with the Washington Commanders, these are all elements for why it makes sense, because this is where in Philadelphia you have two opposites going on right now. One organization sits there and says, we are going to do whatever it takes. Howie Rosen said it. We're going to do whatever it takes to be a contender and not start from scratch. That's exactly what he said last week at the NFL Combine. The 76ers, they feel rudderless. They look like they have no plan. And so for me, I think that's what makes the Bob Myers opportunity so fascinating and so unique, because what you're doing is you're asking a guy to come in here and not just fix your problems, but maybe create an environment that at least feels and looks different. Because sometimes optics are more important than anything else. Sometimes perception becomes reality. And when perception becomes reality, well, let's be realistic. Problems happen. When people stop seeing you the way you think you should be seen, and then you want to convince everybody, no, I swear we're different, and then it doesn't work out. It's not going to work out for you there. You got to either put up or shut up at some point. All right, before we get out of here, a listener over on the YouTube channel at Josh Hennig, Kobe fan says, what do the Eagles do at defensive end? Obviously, with Josh Sweat leaving, look, I think that there's a couple things they're going to do. One is they're definitely going to draft a pass rusher some point in the 2025 NFL draft. I know that a guy like Louis Riddick he absolutely loves James Pierce Jr. from Tennessee. I know there's a lot of mixed thoughts on him as a edge rusher. I think there is a lot of, how do I put this? There's a lot of consternation about him for a few different reasons. And so I do understand that for some people, you don't like the off the field stuff with him. I think Philadelphia has shown they have a pretty good record on, being able to, weed out the good from the bad, right? But again, I understand, maybe a guy like James Pierce Jr. has too much baggage, right? And so then it comes down to, well, how high do you take an edge rusher and what kind of edge rusher are you going to get? Because you got two guys from Georgia. We know the Eagles have had a lot of success drafting from Georgia. Well, they're two very different players because Jelon Walker is more Nolan Smith size, more the smaller end. And Michael Williams is built more like Brandon Graham, maybe even a little bigger, actually. So I think Philadelphia needs to get them more of the 3-down edge than they need to get them more of the pass rushing edge. I think you need a guy who can do a good job of sealing on the run game. So to me, I would say I could see them drafting a Michael Williams from Georgia. I could see them drafting. I mean, again, it depends on what your preference is. I know a lot of people love Jack Sawyer from Ohio State. I'm not sold that he's an edge rusher. I'm really not. I think Sawyers might be more of a 3-down linebacker who happens to blitz than a full-time edge rusher. But again, that's just my perspective. I tend to look at guys more like a Jared Ivey of Ole Miss. I love Kyle Kennard from South Carolina. These are guys that you can get in the 3rd round, right? These are guys that you don't have to draft near the top of the draft, and they can still be impact players on the edge. I'm telling you right now, if the Eagles get Kyle Kennard, you better watch out because Kennard is a stud. That dude had some monster games for South Carolina this year. And the only reason why he's not rated higher by a lot of draft analysts is because I think a lot of draft analysts, they tend to hold against guys when they are not consistently being explosive, right? When they're not consistently getting the big pressure rates and the big pressure numbers. What makes guys like Abdul Carter and Jalen Walker and Michael Williams and James Pierce Jr. the top 4 edge rushers is you're getting that level of production almost all the time. But what gets overlooked by some of these draft analysts is, you ever figure out why Kyle Kennard is quiet sometimes? Because he's getting double teamed. Sometimes triple teamed. He's getting chipped, getting banged up. He's being kept from getting to the pass rusher. And so what happens is that when you're on a team that does not have an elite defensive line, like a team like Tennessee and Georgia, they have a great defensive lines. Penn State, great defensive line. It's a lot easier for you to separate yourself and to showcase yourself because the talent around you helps elevate you. Kyle Kennard is more of a flash guy. He's a guy who more of a, maybe pops every once in a while because he's on a team where he is the man. He is the guy having to go out there. So I do think that they're going to draft somebody. When it comes to free agency, though, I think Philadelphia is really focused on bringing back certain guys. I think they would still like to bring back Slay. And I think they're going to let the big names kind of like weed themselves out of the conversation at first. And I think what you're going to see is as free agency goes on, then Philadelphia might eventually bring someone in. Listen, the Myles Garrett stuff is not going to go away until something actually happens news-wise to prevent it from happening. There's no reason why they might not bring in a Khalil Mack on a one-year deal. There's no reason why they might not bring in a guy like a Matthew Judon on a one-year deal. One of those veterans who still has something left in the tank, but you don't have to spend a ton of money on them because they're in their the early to mid-30s, and they're not like the top of the list of the best pass rushers out there. As I said, I think Philadelphia would like to trade for Myles Garrett, but I think they're being realistic in saying we might not be able to get him. And so that's where in free agency, if you are somebody who goes out and says, hey, I couldn't get Myles Garrett, I lost Josh Sweat. But again, let's say you signed a Khalil Mack or a Matthew Judon on a one-year veteran deal, and then you draft a guy like Kyle Kennard, let's say in the third round. I think it's very easy in that sense to fill that defensive end. I think that the Eagles, they have a much better track record at building the defensive line than they do anything else. The trenches are the strength, offensive line, defensive line. The problem with Philadelphia has been all the other positions. All the other positions have been hit or miss. The wide receiver, for example, safety, corner. These are all positions where Philadelphia has had a little bit of an issue over the years in the draft. All right, thanks to all of you for watching on my YouTube channel at Josh Hennig. I'll be back tomorrow on Game Night 97.3 ESPN FM, 97.3 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Seattle. And if you enjoy these post-show conversations, hit that like button, leave a comment, subscribe, share it with your friends. I appreciate all of you for tuning in each and every day when you do. Have a great night, and I'll catch you tomorrow for another edition of Game Night with me, Josh Hennig. Take care, everyone.